While on the road these past few weekends, I've been opening polls once again on the web to pull in some of the nicest builds from all around the world. You should know how this goes already. I bring in 5 builds either based on DMRs, Polar Stars, gas guns, and maybe even on specific brands. But today we'll be revisiting a highly requested and highly rated edition. It's time for another US Airsoft original. Welcome to the Top 10 Airsoft AK Builds, which is brought to you in thanks to Airsoft AK Operators International Group on Facebook. A link to that group will be located right in the description, and of course we can't begin without throwing a shout out to beatsbyNeVs, who will be supplying this countdown with his free bangin' beats. I definitely recommend you check out his channel if you need free beats for your videos, but be sure to follow his channel instructions and give him credit in the videos that you use his music in the description of those videos. Now then, since that's all covered, let's dive into the biggest submitter countdown from US Airsoft to date with number 10, which can be thought of as a bit of a joke that Dane couldn't believe got into this countdown. Dane's goal was to copy this picture with a low-end CYMA AK, which was completed by a saw and some bolt cutters. Now before you say anything, this gun was made to be a bit of a goof and to have the most fun out of something which is a bit odd, which Dane confirms by saying it's a devilishly fun and great sidearm as most pistol-sized weapons cannot take a high cap. And as you probably saw in the photos shown by Dane, he has quite a bit of different choices for magazines, including a drum. Now this is not a bad way to enjoy yourself for only a $115 trade from an M4, but we must continue on to number 9, which for the first time is held by 2 submitters at the same time, by James and Ian with their GHK HCS 14s. These little discontinued AK bullpups are just one of the many beautiful pieces by GHK that stood out in the submission poll. But to James and Ian, it's all about the recoil with these gas guns, and of course the uniqueness that comes with the bullpup AK, as not a lot of people have fired let alone seen one of these in person. But uniqueness did come at a bit of a cost for sure, as each of these normally sold for around $750 to $650, and were a bit of a limited production run. Yeah, that's not cheap, especially if you think about the many $50 magazines you'll have to buy if you want to play with one of these in a game. And just looking at these really makes me want to hunt down GHK to shoot for myself. But then again, nobody owns one near me at all. But if you want to talk expensive, then the next piece should hurt your wallet a bit, courtesy of a 3-time submitter, Kindle, who has submitted before with the Daytona MP5, the Daytona L85, and now with this Daytona GHK AKMS. I'm seeing a bit of a pattern here. This AKMS has been hand worn and finished and has also been fitted with quite a bit of real steel parts. These real parts include surplus wood hardware, front sight post, rear sight block, real 800 meter rear iron sight, a real top cover, folding stock, Bakelite pistol grip, muzzle brake, cleaning rod, magazine catch, and selector switch. Besides these real AK parts, this AK has been fixed with a steel hammer, a Hephaestus steel trigger and sear kit, an RHOP system with a Prometheus 6.05 inner barrel, and a Promi purple bucking, which has been shaved down, which aids to 250 foot shots with the .3 gram BB, which all came to a price of $1,400. Kindle put a lot of time into this build, which resulted into a solid AK with an amazing exterior look, which Kindle admits himself is the best looking AK that he's ever put together. Now this would have been a solid challenger to anyone in a stock gun countdown, which makes me think I should add that to the list. But I thank you again, Kindle, for submitting, but let's move on to our next spot holder at number 7. Now for this rifle, I'll admit I never really liked this type of AK, however this definitely made me recognize some mystique in it. This would be Chauncy with the CYMA CMO50 MPi-Kms East German AKM short build. Even though this was made with a budget in mind, Chauncy made sure to hook this AKM up right with a modified bucking, a 6.03 Type bore barrel, a Garter air nozzle, re-greased and shimmed gears, and Dean's connections, while the body features a surplus East German Bakelite bottom handguard and real night sights. He also stained the wood and added an E&L pistol grip and added a bit of weathering to the body, which altogether took about 3 months for this build to be completed, and also around $250 to put together a very smooth field gun that's used normally with a 7.4 LiPo battery. Chauncy also told me that this rifle is not a build you see people make very often. It looks different and almost anyone can afford a build like this. He didn't want to be super flashy with tons of rails, crazy looking stocks, and optics that everyone else seems to be going for. He also says it is what it is, an AK, and if it were to take the top spot, maybe then people should stop trying to turn their AKs into M4s, and instead try to build the many different variants of cum-block AKs out there. The words of a scholar have been laid down here, but do the viewers really agree with that statement? Well, find out later, because we're moving on to number 6. That's held by something a bit more Milsim ready, This would be Greg with the good old DBoys AK. Jumping right into this one, Greg started off by lacquering the wood and adding on his Romanian PSO 4x scope, although the tritium inside is long past dead. Greg wished to have his DBoys fire at around the same rate as the real firearm, so he added a GMP bevel gear, a matrix piston, and a G&G aluminum piston head, but left the motor and barrel stock, which had him firing at about 440 feet per second. But a new Maple Leaf Bucking grants him 270 foot shots with a .32 gram BB. And who can ignore that lovely Lancer Tactical GP25 grenade launcher? Greg also made sure to say that his build is unique, effective, realistic, affordable at $400, and a fantastic rendition of an era that was home to some of the finest firearms ever developed, both Soviet and American made, and that you won't run into a build quite like his in the field, which wraps up his spot here on the countdown with more strong words with a prideful owner behind him. But on the other side, we have something once again a bit more different. Here at number 5. Some might love how different this next piece is, and some might really hate it. But this is the SK45 right out of the Skunk Works from Matt. Now this may be the first and possibly the only 45 ACP styled AK out there, but that's exactly what Matt was going for. Now this funny looking playa killer from the UK took a total of 9 hours to think up and build, but a lot of parts had to be built from scratch, including the receiver, the complete front end, folding foregrip, and folding stock. You may also notice a familiar magazine. Well, it's familiar because that would be a Mac 11 magazine that connects to a custom made hop-up unit. And when it came to a price, I wasn't really given one, simply because this gun, like some others that have made these countdowns, was made from a pile of spare parts from previous builds. One of those builds being a beautiful bullpup rifle that is no longer with us. That AK would have made it really high up in this show if it still existed, but Matt was still able to make this show with this piece of handiwork. But we still have 4 more builds to go, so let's keep this train going with a piece of history at number 4. This builder really went the extra mile to get photos to really pop for this countdown, so much so that I shared one of them on our Instagram. But what's on this AK is really what makes it special. Think that wood looks good? Well, I think so too, but it's actually wood straight from a real Soviet era AK, so I'm not surprised that it stands out. This weathered piece would be the prize child of a Canadian named Fernando that has built this up from a G&G AK. Fernando told me it's the truest to an AK that an airsoft gun can actually be. Instead of rails and attachments, you have wood. Instead of waffle magazines, you have steel. And if you think these photos are really doing it for you, then you should give Vulcan a nod for them. This piece was made exclusively for looks to be as bare and gritty as the real AK is. And this is the rifle that Fernando looks at with so much pride. The rifle that he thinks should be the best in show, for being as true to the real thing as it could be. But don't let our judges be the final decision makers here. You guys can vote this build up in the comments, as well as any of the other builds on this show that you like the most. Just let Fernando know, or any of the builders you've seen here, what you think about their pieces with those comments. And don't hold back, just be truthful. Also let us know if we really did wrong by allowing some of these builds into the show, because I do remember there being a lot of controversy when I allowed this build to enter into the poll. Because at number 3, we have HCS Kriss with his LCT PP19. Inside this LCT would be a lot of original parts, however an ASCU Gen 3 MOSFET unit, an SHS high-speed 14-tooth piston, an SHS CNC nozzle, an SHS tappet plate, and an M110 spring were added to help send .2 gram BBs of elite force at 365 feet per second. A retro arm silver straight trigger, silver fire selector, an E&L high torque motor, Prometheus 6.03 type bore, and a Mad Bull red bucking with an H-nub were also added. Also on the outside, Kriss hooked up this 19 with an XPS EOTech replica, TWI B21M rails, an Asura RK3 motor grip, and an Avengers TWPS 170 lumens tack light, which brought up the total of this piece to around $900, which were all picked up at Brill Armory, Evic, and WGCshop.com, before being tested at HCS. This is by far Kriss's favorite piece, and that means a lot as he says he's owned over 100 guns of this past year, but won't get rid of this one anytime soon. He just really enjoys on how compact this 9mm AK is, and how competitive he can be with it. But overall, he just enjoys everything about it, which does mean quite a bit if he really has owned over 100 guns before. This piece definitely looks great, and our judges really favored this AK variant, but you already know that we have 2 more builds to take a look at, so let's get right into it with those last 2 with our runner-up. And with number 2, we have a pretty dressed up E&L from Constantine. Now this tacked out AK104 was made to fill many different roles in the field. To be quick at the draw, great for range, and with an aid of some rather large magazines, superb at suppressive fire. To fill these spots with the best performance, however, Constantine had to upgrade some internals, which include something called a nuke FET. To be honest, I have no idea what that is, but I'm guessing it's some type of a MOSFET. But what does sound more familiar to me would be the Prometheus high torque gears, cylinder head, 6.03 type bore, and the R-hop system inside. When you close the hood and take a look at the body outside, you'll see a Zeniko Klesch laser and strobe, a TWI PT1 stock, an Asura pistol grip, an LCT flash hider, a TWI B33 top cover, and an Asura PK6. Now I did try to get more information on how much this piece costed and how it performs, but it seems after he gave me this list of parts, Constantine disappeared, and I still haven't gotten any word from him. Nonetheless, I still hope he gets a good smile on his face when he sees that his 104 made it to the runner-up spot, if he ever sees this countdown at all. But besides these builds, and of course what's behind number 1, what almost made the show? Well, that's why we have the What Almost Made the Countdown segment. This segment contains some of the awesome pieces that could have made the show, but didn't due to a whole slew of reasons. From either just coming short with the judges, or just never writing back about being permitted into the show. But that doesn't mean that the judges, or myself, didn't think that your pieces were awesome. So congrats to you all for submitting, and I gotta admit, a lot of your builds were freaking awesome, guys. Also, before we crack open the top spot, I'd like to give you guys a good look at just some of the future countdowns I have planned for the channel, which include an HK build countdown, a CQB build countdown, a Gorilla Airsoft Radio top 5, and another rendition of the gas gun countdown. But be sure to write down in the comments below what you would like to see next. But you better keep an eye out for our next show, which will be the second edition of our YouTube submission special, where you, the fans and the supporters, can submit your own builds to our private USAirsoft show. Find out where to join when I upload a submission alert video here on the channel and on our Facebook on USAirsoft Texas. And I'll be sure to leave a link to our Facebook page in the description of this video. But now it's time for the spot that is either approved of by all who lay eyes on it, or the spot that crowds say should have gone to another. Well, here you guys go. This is John P with another E&L. This is his AKS74u. This foreign piece was voted quite highly by the poll and even by our judges, but what makes this gun really tick? Well, this one was not just built to look good, this was built just like the rifle before it, to perform. Inside an aluminum nozzle by SHS sits, alongside with a Reaps ME1 hop-up, and an M120 spring that's pushed by 13:1 Super Shooter CNC gears, which themselves are cranked by an 11.1 volt LiPo battery, connected to a MOSFET, while on the outside a custom Russian-made handguard from Alpha Arms shields his suppressor, while a Zeniko RK04 grip waits to support its operator. Not bad for a $600 build. Not bad at all. But like I said, John P made this build to perform while using strictly Russian-made parts. You know, besides the suppressor, because that was made by John himself. Now man, this countdown took a long time to make. I started Sunday and now it's already Friday. Despite that, this was an awesome show to make, and I hope you liked it as much as I did making it. If you did, be sure to spank that like button past 100 likes, just like the last countdown, and go ahead and share your opinions with them comments. Also check out our Facebook and our new Instagram page with the links in description. But until that next video drops, I'll be sure, like always, to see you all next time.